Alchemist series and different.
You ever notice the alchemy in Dragon Ball Z?
I need to actually watch Dragon Ball Z. I was deprived of cable or satellite as a child.
He starts out black and he goes through the blackening, and then he goes through the reddening, which is like the Kaioken technique. And then when he reaches the ultimate phase, it's yellow, and he goes yellow, and this bright yellow aura appears around him. Straight up, as he gains power, it's the alchemical phases.
Wow, that's pretty epic, and I think that's actually also represented and done in the Last Airbender as well to some degrees.
And it goes through the trials of all the different.
Sorry to interrupt. I just got an invitation to be with some of my favorite people, so I thought I'd join. How are you?
Welcome.
Yes. Feel free to restream to your channel if you would like the extra content. We were talking some ElectroCulture as well as straight up alchemy, and Charlie giving us a lesson on his Eastern Oriental Alchemy knowledge and experiences.
That's legit. I want to hear about it. What is this Eastern Alchemy? What are you telling me about this, Charlie?
Yeah, heard about John Chang. He's a Qigong master.
Oh, of course. Yes, the Fire Master, right?
Oh, yeah, we were just watching the video where he lit the newspaper on fire.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's what we're looking at, of course, yes. God,
Yeah.
I feel so bad for this guy because it's just the naivete. I've met a lot of people out there that think they live in the worst place and that everyone else out there are really nice, good people, and they don't realize that actually the rest of the world's out there trying to use their purity for material. It's really the most evil possible people by accident. They didn't mean to be bad people, but these like materialist reporters and stuff that he's talking to that totally betrayed him, betrayed his secret, betrayed his trust. And it's not that they were trying to do something evil, but they just inherently were. And that's exactly what they warned. John was warned by the monks,
Right. At the same time, though, it's the entire lesson of it and just this one full story of it. Like him going through, him experiencing his past master, him like coming forward with it, then his own visible change in like behaviors and all of it, and then also within his own community, like he is the medicine man that they all go to, that he legitimately is like healing them, and like that, like they hold him with high elevation, and he's doing great things for the people and the community, right? So
to
not
an
all
extent,
bad.
as long as he doesn't tell people about it. And I think that's really interesting for us because our whole thing has been, hey, knowledge is power. Give people the power by giving people the knowledge. If everyone knows about this stuff, then the world will be a better place. And it's weird because a lot of
because they're secret. All the secret societies
are
evil.
We're supposed
for whatever reason, these guys are awesome.
I mean, that's all I'm saying. It's a weird double standard, okay? It does seem a little racist. We're like, well, the white secret club is bad, but the Tibetan one's legit, even though the Tibetan one wants you to suck on their tongue. I'm just saying.
But is he Tibetan or has he been westernized and CIA planted? Like, Charlie, I would like your opinion on that matter of the recent Dalai Lama tongue kiss thing with the child. Was that innocent? Is that perverted? What, like, is he corrupted? What's going on? Have you heard of it?
Dalai Lama, he thinks of himself as a child himself, so he's probably just playing around. A lot of times he's seen at ceremonies doing some weird things.
Right.
Like just acting out.
Now that you say that, it's like that just is like a reality check to the West now that we've been so hyper sexualized by the media, the freaking everything else going on, that we automatically have to associate sexuality with the act of just sticking your tongue out to a kid.
It doesn't have to be sexual to be weird that he wants him to suck on his tongue.
They might have, who knows? They might have not even touched, but it just like
I mean,
around with the kid.
But I agree though. Like, let's say in the Harry Potter movie, Dumbledore was like, "Suck on my tongue, Harry." I think it would have had a different.
I'm not down with.
There's a difference between sucking on a tongue and
the Dalai. I don't co-sign this. That dude's sick. Straight up, he knew what he was saying. He said, "Suck my tongue." He stuck his tongue out.
Did he say "suck my tongue"?
Being weird and playful is like, "Oh, got your nose." That's weird and playful.
Deep fake? Could it be a deep fake?
That's fucking gross.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too deep down this rabbit hole, but I recently rewatched the Nazi footage of Tibet. If you look in, because if you think about the 7 Years Tibet movie, first off,
Hold
7
on,
years.
hold on. Before you go on, we got to finish the video. Or do you want to go on?
I just want to rabbit hole really hard that the Dalai Lama was raised by Nazis and that the CIA did Freedom of Information Act payroll. Just blah blah blah. Remind. Go back. I'm done. Okay.
That's an interesting story. Yeah, the Dalai Lama. It's a very interesting backstory. But,
don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean just because he's raised by a Nazi.
Scrutiny, nor accept any new students.
That's Jim McMillan. That's what I've been talking
He would
about.
sink from
It's a
sight
cultural
and
thing.
continue
Nothing
his
sexual.
healing in obscurity, as he had done since before we met him in the early 80s, and had
Tibetan
always
kissing.
told us was right.
Tibetan kissing is better than French kissing, apparently. More American.
This was one of the early tests of passing a chopstick through a block, so students would learn to do this. If you pass the
This
chi
is
through
this is the Mo Pai
Yeah.
style of
the
qigong,
Pai
right?
Qigong, right? Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there is no way it would be almost impossible to convince me this isn't real. This is the one of the ones where I'm just, of course, how could it not be? The CIA and all of their practices trying to learn this stuff. There's no way it's not real.
Yeah, I visited another group that's independent of John Chang, and yeah, they do similar things. I witnessed a lot of this myself. The electric chi, where you feel like you're getting shocked, like a TENS unit, but they don't have any device on them. And I inspected the table and the floor in the office, and they even stripped down to their underwear to prove to me that they had no device on them. And I witnessed them turning water sweet. So when the water looks plain, then when you shake it creates a foam, and then you taste it tastes sweet.
Wow.
And I witnessed the electric movement of people. Yeah.
That's happening.
The foam is super interesting because then when you look at any mythology, it's from the foamy water that is where the life springs, like when the dark water and light water or the fire and ice or whatever, it's always a foamy type water, like in heathen is represented by milk of a dumbla. That's super interesting.
Occult priestess says that the Theosophical Society of Luciferians. That one part I would be curious to hear more from you on that. 'Cause I've studied the Theosophical Society a lot. I have the Lucis Bailey books, and I'm not sure I'd call them Luciferians. I mean, just specifically, but I'm curious if you've got more of a reason for that beyond like the trees of light, trees of white magic and light or something. I'm not saying you're wrong, just interested.
Someone clipped a bunch of these together, but this is Jim McMillan again doing the level. Once he got to a certain level, he was able to work with John Chang to John Chang would open the acupuncture points, and then he was able to move these VHS cardboard containers that were just sitting there, and he was able to pull them down using his chi.
Mm-hmm.
And so John Chang picked him up.
This guy, right?
What was that?
Did you say you studied under this guy or met this guy, Charlie?
Jim McMillan. Yeah, I first communicated with him because after seeing this video from John Chang, I tried to reach out to everyone I could. Coaster de Venus was one student. He's still alive. He wrote a bunch of books on it. And Jim McMillan I got in contact with to learn the methods. So I have some I could share with you guys from those methods.
Also, just Occult Priestess. I know about the magazine. Lucifer was the name of the magazine that the Theosophical Society produced from 1888 to 89 or something like that. But it's not necessarily the same. Well, they talk about Lucifer. I wouldn't say that they're Luciferians. I'd say that they study Lucifer amongst other things. But not that that's. I mean, so also the Illuminati and the idea that Lucifer is light and God is darkness, right? So.
And the Lucifer satellites. So
I'm curious though how that relates to sweet and dark dark water.
Like both sides. Anytime you're picking a side of a polarity, you're not really picking the all both. Like, so I mean, that's if you're gonna say anything's God, it's got to be both sides because a polarity is a split of a union. That's why it's polarized against itself. So I mean, anytime you're doing that, you're just picking a ball team. Is all you're doing. Like.
Right.
Yeah, someone mentioned in the comments 72 levels. Yeah, that's true. John Chang's master said, 72 levels of Mopai, but Jim McMillan said he only got to like level 2. It's very difficult. Anyone that gets above level 3 is very difficult. It makes the yin and yang chi. So that's killed a lot of students.
Solomon had 72 levels that he had control of, was supposedly Solomon's thing.
It's weird when you look at the light and darkness thing. For instance, you might read in the Bible, John 1:5, in the NIV or the King James are like, God is light and in him there's no darkness. But if you actually like bothered to read the translation of what there's no mention of light or darkness in the actual passage. It's a message of God is holy, truthful, is perfect and righteous, and in him there is no sin, no wickedness, no imperfection. And it's using the allegory of light and dark. So today we believe that these words are interchangeable with these concepts. Brutal. I don't know if you saw Malcolm X, but brutal.
But they
Ooh, Dalai Lama touches.
maybe like the one just now. Yeah. Was all new to me.
There's a bit left. Come on.
Like pura-pura ngerti is like you said that means like when you go to the bathroom and you have to do the things really bad, you have to push it really out. Yeah. That's how you have to do it. Yeah. So with all your strength and concentration.
Tim McMillan says the only way he was able to do this because John Chang created a unit field around him, so he was able to project the force out. He can do on his own. He tried to be under John Chang.
I didn't do it slow.
Later, Jim McGowan wrote after he passed the test and he went to the bathroom, and when he was going to the bathroom, he was pushing and he knocked something over because just that same action of forcing out energy is how they project the chi out.
Wow, like it's just so. Oh man, it's just epic. And there's also all the legends, but I've seen like videos of like in India as well as China, some of the masters around there, like in the different monks, the masters, like the. Yeah, it's legit. I feel.
Mm-hmm. Check out Master Jiang on YouTube. I can post a link.
Dude, just really quickly, the Dalai Lama touched Lady Gaga's leg. You know what that means. He likes dudes.
We also like went over the other days there that there's like the other real who you believe is the real Dalai Lama or something. A different guy.
Not Han, yeah.
Okay, so that's why you believe this guy is just the CIA, which he's been in the West. Who knows?
Might explain a lot.
There's a whole bunch of things going around saying that the Dalai Lamas are trained by the Jesuits and all that. And at the end of the day, when you're a world stage actor like that, you don't get to that position. Like you look at the ones that have been, at least in today's conventional sense, somewhat clean, like Bashar Assad, who they've tried to do a character assassination, tried to do all kinds of political assassinations, and failed. And you never hear anything else about that guy. Gaddafi had a country that was so.
They were all like secular and peaceful. They were some of the most peaceful, successful, prosperous in the regions.
Yeah, it was the most prosperous country and had the best standard of living in the world. We don't hear nothing about him, and until we hear the propaganda in order to let us go ahead and start our proxy war with him. But up until then, when his country is the most prosperous and has the highest standard of living, nobody talks about it.
Exactly, right? So he was taken to the West out of India and to America, was it for a bit? No, Europe, I believe, or something, right?
The thing is, when you look at the other
Gaddafi, the rebels, quote rebels, i.e. CIA agents, murdered him. They killed him in the street, even though his country was this amazing country. And you don't hear nothing about that dude, which is what I'm saying. So this person who's, you know, I'm not saying that this guy was some angel or anything, but according to the information, he was bringing organic farming to Africa. He was starting a gold-backed system, which is what really got him killed, and had brought primary water to Africa and was going to free them.
Gaddafi was so cool. Michael Jackson started dressing like him. You remember that?
Right. Yep. And so this guy, and like, if you were going to be a farmer, they just gave you the farm and whatnot.
Not just that, he built giant fresh water, first desalinating plants, and then giant canals where he was going to create like these huge agricultural areas in Africa, turn the desert,
desertified Africa. Yeah.
Well, so the other thing, so we're thinking about llamas, though. I mean, because the thing about Gaddafi was he built himself into a place where the military could use what he created. So they took it, and that's why.
My point was that Gaddafi was a good guy, and until they killed him, you never heard of him.
But well, I mean, it depends on where you were. Like so in California, we love Gaddafi, we love Hugo Chavez, and it's weird because we talked about it a lot more. But the Bush family definitely moved in and took over what was Gaddafi, and with the Arab Emirates, right? Because of the Bin Laden family were associated. Actually, Obama's father was in OPEC and was blown up. That was how Obama's father supposedly died, right? So there's a lot to that story. But when I was looking into Nepal, it's interesting. Nepal, Tibet, some of these places where they have lots of llamas, that's where the CIA LSD experiments ran off to after the war. And you can equate this with Gaddafi because Timothy Leary, when they snuck him out, they flew him to Africa where they kept him safe. The CIA were watching him for the rest of his life. So these places are these weird black market CIA run mafia places, and they control these places are hyper religious. They have some sort of a boudarchy where they've got a kid that they take these orphans, they control them, and they build this civilization around it, and they're all reverent to the leaders of it. And it's crazy.
I've never heard that word before. What exactly is a boudarchy?
So again, with earlier when I was watching and I'll look for it just so I can show you Nazi footage, Tibet, the Tibetans really, let's see, like, how about just like 1930s footage of Tibet? Yeah. So the Tibetans were impressed by the Nazis. The Nazis came in and said, hey, we've got this leader. They're like, well, we have one too. That sounds really similar. Like a natural born leader. Oh yeah, we totally have one of those. And the idea that he'll be replaced with another natural born leader. Yeah. That's exactly what we do. And then they showed them Tibet, and then the Nazis projected footage of Berlin in the temple on the wall and showed them footage of Berlin. And so this is what it looks like where we're from. And like, oh yeah, this is exactly in line with the way things were in ancient Tibet. We have this technology, and so the trading and the agreement, people don't talk about this because they say, oh, well, the Nazis got to Tibet. They realized they weren't all German people. And that's not what it means. That's not what this idea of Aryan, which was noble in Sanskrit, the noble people that were associated with this technology. So, I mean, some of the stuff that Charlie's talking about, that's the last remnants of what this PRC haven't been able to suppress, but there was a lot more, clearly. And the Nazis were immediately into how they could use this for like flying saucers, levitation, the Bell technology. And it's supposed to be something that they kept control. But the idea of a boudarchy, I think the point of the question is just that you have a natural born leader, right? You have a natural born leader that is replaced with another natural born leader. You have a Führer. You have a ascended master, essentially, and they pick them. And it's not just one, right? Because you have different lamas. Here's the Lama Tamang, right? Which is one of the Nepali lamas. And then I showed you earlier Thich Nhat Hanh, who was the Vietnamese Lama, and he died in like a few years ago. But God, what an amazing human being, with certainly with magical powers, but more importantly, with the truth.
Once again, nobody's heard of him for the
Yeah.
most part, but the Dalai Lama, everybody knows. See what I'm saying? That's what I was saying. You only get known and put on the TVs if you're dirt.
Yeah, I mean, the more you look at, everybody knows. Is, like, I
Right,
think kind of the
exactly.
point.
Especially on the Western.
Everybody
propaganda
knows
site.
him. Is like, look at this.
Mockingbird.
Look at this picture, bro. Look at this,
The
Alderson.
real spiritual
Everybody knows
community
him.
leader would stay within that community, not flee to the CIA opposing side, right? Essentially, and that would be why.
Yeah, there he is cozying up with Bush. I seen one with him. I've seen a number of him cozying up with the different royals and just big smiles. And yeah, you don't do these things and not be one of them. You
Right.
know, this other guy that had actual powers that was actually spiritual. Yeah, look at this nonsense. You know, this other guy who is obviously
Yeah, that's like bowing down to that creep is.
Yeah.
We're
There
kind
are-
of
but it's
ghoulish. Can we
interesting,
go
like,
back?
the-
Sorry, go back into like the couple above that. Like there you go. Like does the one over like that kind of looks schmeagly, does it not?
I don't know.
Totally looks
The llama
Totally.
claim
I
is
don't know,
interesting
but
because
I also don't want to offend and criticize people's holy leader that are of that faith and
or like the least thing I got a problem with is
Well,
anybody's
you know
looks.
what?
You know what I mean? It's
Like,
more
I
about what they're
also
like as
will
people. But,
criticize.
freaking heathens, man.
yeah.
You know what? I also criticize the head of Asatru. Like, I think he's horrible. So, I don't pick my leaders. I didn't pick my president. That guy's a complete dirtball. I wouldn't let that guy babysit my kids or feed my fucking cats. Like, he doesn't represent me. I didn't pick him.
Very true. Me too, with both agreeing on your situation as well as my Canadian situation and the ridiculousness that trust in judo is in Canada. It's bad, and
There's about 300 ethnic minorities in China. About 50 languages are left that exist. And when you start to look at all of the different kinds of people that China's claiming as their people, right, it gets pretty interesting. Like the Tamang people and some of these groups that have these lama cultures, because it goes back so far, and you have to wonder, is this something from Tartaria, or is this something that was installed in the reset which destroyed Tartaria? It seems kind of similar to a lot of the culture we have in the West too, like the Amans, but they're trained all their life, and there's only a number of them, and they do end up being as a child put in a lot of power, right? So it's a weird kind of rule to have someone who's picked from society who's going to be in charge in so many ways. And you're like, you're going to be the giver. It's like The Giver, right? You remember that book?
It's kind of interesting
like,
because it's almost like
the Burma.
It's like the opposite of the theory that most people have with the royal elite families, where you're somehow able to control your reincarnation. So basically, every time they die, they come right back and they're able to, reap the benefits of whatever,
The sovereign between you and God. Are you sacrificing your soul to their control? Are you slaving your soul to them, or do you use your free will to redeem your soul and keep it and rise above and be your own sovereign of creation and between you and your creator?
I mean, the Pope and a Lama, this idea also that like you're God's incarnate medium on earth, right? That's kind of
all right, Charlie. We've been essentially bashing Eastern Oriental.
No, I brought it to the West too. It's not
culture
bad.
for 15, 20 minutes. What's your
I don't think it's bad, by the way.
ideas on it? I know.
Yeah, it depends on a
Scrutinizing.
unique situation. I haven't really done much research into it, actually. But yeah, it's still controversial. Today, you can't mention the Dalai Lama in China. It's blocked in their internet. But yeah, it's interesting, their culture. And yeah, a lot of he said now that, if he were to die, he doesn't want to reincarnate as a Chinese person, but China wants, obviously to have a Chinese person that's leading Tibet. So they're trying to select the next Dalai Lama to be Chinese. but he refused, even though he's so like supposedly loving and accepting. That he said he's not going to reincarnate as Chinese.
How can you choose where you reincarnate, man? Like,
apparently he can choose, but they need a council. And there's a bunch of methods that they use to select the next reincarnation of the Dalai Lama. And they find the child. And there's a method. Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove just recently explained one of the techniques that they found someone that was supposedly the reincarnation of someone that just passed away, and then they put the child near the corpse of the person that they were in the past life, and they put a blanket over them, and through some ritual they were able to restore the child's memory of that past life. But I don't know exact method. It's very secret.
Oh,
There's so
boy,
many
that
stories
sounds.
of those.
You could look at that from another side and say that they've taken over this child. That suddenly
That's what
this
Jeffrey
older,
was talking about.
heavier. Yeah, that's.
you
Might
know
be
what?
possessed,
Is it
yeah.
all right if I ask? Because I know a girl who lived in Nepal who knows some llamas and knows a kid who was selected to be a llama. Can we ask Anne if she can?
Yes.
Okay, I'll see if
please.
she's around to ask about this, because it's interesting to me what it would be like to be selected to be a llama as a kid, because a lot of them come from families that kind of want you to be selected. So, I mean, it's not necessarily from the poorest family, and you can kind of hedge your bets like what is going to happen to become a llama. But it is kind of this weird caste that is, instead of having the nobility leading to who becomes in charge, you're selecting from the people. Right. So like there's still princes and there's other things going on. But then this is somebody selected the people. So that doesn't seem necessarily bad to me either. It seems like an interesting way of keeping the people relevant. It's almost democratic in so much, like representative democracy. I don't know. What do you think about it? Do you think it makes sense in nature?
I don't know if you haven't really seen it anywhere else. It's an interesting leadership technique. But there's methods so that they have like the personal possessions of the person that was reincarnated. They'll have one of their items and other items that didn't belong to them. Yeah, you've heard of the test. Yeah, and then the children are able to recognize what that was theirs in the past life, and that's how they help select the next their reincarnation. So I think a lot of the methods isn't really possession, but probably just a way of getting them to remember their past life, which would be a good method, I think, for all of us to learn. It would be nice to know. But some people have learned about their past lives, and it's caused them a lot of mental issues. So maybe it's not the best thing to do. You have to be ready. It's the right time.
There were some really young popes in history also. So like at some point, I think the youngest pope was, 12, Pope Benedict the Ninth or something like that. So there were child popes at some point. And it's kind of interesting that didn't last over here, because it seems like it's a better, like I like Padme in Star Wars. I like the idea of the child monarch. I don't know. But I mean,
it can go good and it can go bad.
True. I mean, I think a cult princess brought up the Krishnamurti, right? With the Blavatskys just taking a child and tried to raise them. What do you think are the implications? Like, what happens to the child? Hey, by the way, this is Anne.
Welcome in.
We were just really quickly answer that question though. But what do you think are the implications of like the Stockholm syndrome, or what happens to a child who's raised to be a lama or raised like Krishnamurti, like to be like, hey, you're gonna be Jesus, kid. You're gonna be in charge of the world, and at least of this village or something like that.
Yeah, it's got to be difficult, but I don't know too many people explain the experience. Maybe there's some books on it, but I don't know.
Well, and you were in Nepal. Good to have you, by the way. Thank you. We were just talking about llamas. Can you tell us a bit about the background of this situation? Didn't you meet like a kid who's going to become a llama or something like that?
So who I met was the kid who was supposed to be the reincarnation of a very famous monk in Nepal. The famous monk was our guide's grandfather. So the guy that I met was supposed to be his grandfather's reincarnated soul.
Wow. And so what is that like to be? So I guess they all believe in reincarnation. Are you going around are they looking for the reincarnations of these monks like pretty commonly? Not just the Pope, but like just a monk, or how's this?
So to my understanding, the way it worked was that based on, the places his grandfather was from, was pretty far high up in the Himalayan mountains as far as the temple that he presided over and all that. So it was more that the way they found him was that, you know, he just had the memories of his grandfather in ways in which they felt that, you know, he couldn't have unless he was his grandfather. But to my understanding, it was that he was found in a temple, like, and they aren't really all that descriptive about it other than that. You know, they don't go into great detail. I mean, I remember more seeing, you know, all of the pendants that everybody would wear with Tashi's grandfather on one side and the kid on the other than I remember much them giving much of any detail.
So, but how old was this kid that they decided was Tashi's grandfather? Like, this is.
Oh, I mean, by the time we were there, he was like a little older than us, so like in his 20s.
Okay.
And I want to say they found him when he was like 9.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens to you? Let's say you're 9 years old and they tell you you're going to be a lama or you're going to be a, you know, this monk. You already were.
Yeah. I mean, they keep you, they keep you, I've heard a lot about this.
You have to pay his credit card debt. Like, how hard is this supposed to go?
You know, I hear about this when it comes to the Dalai Lama too. Like, the earlier they find them, the more they are sort of, you know, contained in a bubble and just really groomed. So, you know, Stockholm syndrome isn't a terrible example, because they are just groomed and very, very much kept in like a homogenous bubble for a long time in their temples way high up in the mountains, and, you know, only allowed to see certain people. I mean, to my understanding, the kid who is the reincarnation of Tashi's grandfather, you know, he had didn't get to meet other people outside of the temple for several years after they had like finally like officially decided it was definitely the reincarnation of his grandfather.
Is that a good thing? I mean, so the kids kept safe, I guess, from a lot of outside. And if you know, do you think it could be a good thing?
Yeah, I think it depends. You know, I think that it can keep you from certain programming. I was thinking about the other day, you know, I've been studying more into Rama Kundalini yoga specifically. And I was thinking about how there were a lot of things that Guru Jagat would get very, very excited about because she didn't have them as a kid, that, you know, she recognized as programming, but would still try to spend time like watching things like television shows that we would stay away from because we just recognize that they're programming, so we should just stay away from them. As where like she would get really excited about trying to, you know, use them for a good cause when we just know, like,
I can totally imagine like the Dalai Lama loves watching Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune. You know, Wheel of Fortune for sure.
Innocence to the Western culture.
Yeah.
And
The Price is Right for the Dalai
Eastern
Lama.
culture that, it's a different way of living, I guess.
Well, part of the reason we brought it up, there's a couple of things. Like, I still want to know more about like what it's like in Nepal and lamas, but also because we were talking about Mopai, because Charlie was bringing up Mopai, which is, the more you look at Kundalini and some of these Eastern philosophies, the Chinese government destroyed so many of these temples, right? And like even in India, they were destroyed by the British. And so there's a lot of effort to destroy these schools of thought, which were about magical martial arts, really were about magical things more than they're about like kung fu, karate, and these things that we see, and about using breath, using iron, what's it called? Iron bear, whatever. So you can walk.
Yeah.
Say it again.
Iron palm training.
Iron palm. I love that. I wouldn't do it, but iron palm. I mean, unless you were a mother trying to save your baby, iron palm, right?
There's other reasons. Yeah, they hit sand and water and rocks, and it helps open the acupuncture point of the hand.
There are other reasons. It's true. But I mean, the idea that there are these superpowers, what do you think also, Anne? Do you believe that, do you know the Mopai story about John Chang?
Not well.
So maybe you guys, I know we've heard it a couple times now, we brought it up, but it's an important one. This guy, he was Charlie explains he's a monk.
Lawrence Blair. I went and visited John Chang. He was just healing in the islands of Java in Indonesia. And yeah, there we go. So Lawrence Blair was British, and they visited him, and they saw him. He was using his qigong to heal with acupuncture. He could pass chi through the needles to cause like a TENS movement, muscle spasm. That would help with the healing process. And later he demonstrates he can light newspaper on fire. Do communication with
They
spirits.
really egged him on though, and he's like, "I shouldn't show you this," and they're like, "No, but like, could you?" He's like, "Oh yeah, but no, you shouldn't." Did you?
Right, his school doesn't allow him to share it publicly, and they misunderstood the word documentary for document.
And then share the recording,
and they tricked him into recording
it right here.
Yeah, so he got it.
This is it right here. Like, he legitimately is like, "Don't record it or anything," but okay. And that's like the one time he's like, all right. But then after that, like bad stuff started to happen, like someone got hurt while he was trying to heal them. And he's like, what the hell? And it's like, oh, because they recorded it and he found out people had seen it. And he's like, disappeared. He just disappeared so that no one could find him.
Interesting.
Yeah,
it
was actually the chopstick that in public.
He was showing he could pass the chopstick to the table, and then he broke it off and accidentally hit someone between the eyes and caused them to draw blood. And his school taught not to draw blood from people. Or
he's like, oh my god, what have I done?
Yeah,
we'll play this part.
Yeah, the scientist
is uncomfortable about showing that he can feel anything at all. Dr. Roger doesn't know what to expect.
Wow.
Out comes the metal detector, like the things they use in airports, to see if he has any concealed metal in his body. Then the voltmeter, to try and measure the chi. But how to get it to work?
Appreciate
Where's the ground?
They say like the thing they use in airports, like nobody knows what a metal detector is, and that today they don't use metal.
They don't want you to think that they could use it for finding buried treasure.
Well, yeah, I guess that it would be the
difference.
He
doesn't stand on his dignity. He's eager to help, but still no readings. They're getting shocks off his arm, and now they're on the right settings, but the needle still isn't moving.
So it's a different
DJ says it isn't electricity, it's chi.
1, 2, up. I feel it in my whole body. I feel it at 3, 0.3. I feel it in my legs. Shit.
But suspecting there's some tricky setup on his premises they can't find, they insist we all go to a randomly chosen hotel room several miles away to see if he can light a light bulb with his fingers.
The narrator
it doesn't
so
ground
fun.
on the wall.
Yeah, it's on Blair. He's done a lot of documentary stuff.
Holds and grounds one wire, while DJ pumps chi through the other. The bulbs are LEDs, light-emitting diodes, which ignite in different colors according to the intensity of current.
On, off, on.
Brilliant.
I think Xirtus would like the full documentary.
Things were
Called
going
The Ring
well.
of Fire.
DJ was enjoying it too, until...
So he lit an LED bulb.
All out to
with
lunch
his
at his local, where he tried to push a chopstick through the table.
Uncle Fester status.
He couldn't get it through the Formica surface, so he came up through an inch of wood from underneath. Not only did he draw his own blood, but a chopstick splinter had caught Alison here between the eyes, drawing more.
Wow.
The incident was laughed off apologetically.
Not in the eye.
But next morning he was a different man, drawn and upset. He said he'd been visited all night by his long-dead master, raging that he had broken the strict taboos of his sect, never to show off in public and never to cause harm or draw blood. He felt deeply chastised. All further testing and filming must end. Never again would he submit to public scrutiny, nor accept any new students.
There's Jim McMillan again, the student. So I've got the training method from him if you want to see it. I can share screen.
As he had done since before we met.
Yeah, what do you think about this? While you get McMillan's footage up, that's awesome. Also, the training. But what do you think about this?
Absolutely. So Charlie trained under the guy who trained under this guy that we are watching, and this is the process that his pupil taught Charlie. The lesson.
When they were showing that clip, bursting the Coke bottle, but that's not part of the Qigong training. That was just a technique he learned. If you hit the top of a closed Coke bottle, it'll create pressure and the bottle will pop out. And that just ended up in the documentary for some reason, showing he was a student though. He was there training for many years, and he would visit, traveling back and forth, and later learn like the level 1 and 2 of Mopai. And he showed he can move the VHS tapes. So this was the method he sent to me. So I contacted him after reading his book on his visits, and it's pretty interesting. So you might recognize some of the stance, some of you guys, maybe in the chat. But this is a pretty common technique, and he just sent a bunch of pictures showing all the movements for the form. And there's a paper that explains more detail, what you have to do in preparation, and then this is how you conclude the method. And here are some other techniques. I don't know if you can see. Oh, I can't. I can maybe share my other screen. Let me share again.
I've had some weird experiences with Reiki that were definitely, it felt more than placebo. I'm pretty sure that Reiki's got power to it.
Well, I wonder. I've got a story for you when this is all done. But sorry, continue.
No, you can go for it. Yeah, I mean,
no, my story is at the very end of this stream.
Like
right afterwards. Okay.
Technique is called Dadong, and this methods of 12 postures that I'm allowed to show with you guys. Pretty interesting. So you see some of the old Buddhist and Chinese drawing techniques and ways of explaining how to do the methods. And to conclude, this is the paper that Jim McMillan sent me for level 1. I'll just quickly skim through it, but to explain it, you'll see, it's quite a lot. We'll have to do maybe another episode. But basically,
definitely a whole episode.
They only slightly vary from level 1 and 2, basically the same. And some interesting techniques, breath work.
It's fascinating how similar it is, like the yogas, but also the different kung fu and martial arts, but the monk style of it and the yogi style of it, of the Eastern cultures.
But how much of it do you think is Hollywood propaganda? Because I like the story.
Over there, none, because it's not Hollywood. It's the stories from the deep East.
Right.
It's
yeah.
The Eastern mystery.
But Spain, Catholics in Spain have their stories of miracles and stuff too.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It looks like there's wide evidence of it in all cultures. Just like I've seen very similar recordings and practices within India and their yogi masters, and China and their different Taoist and Buddhist masters.
So have super soldiers figured out how to use this? Are there military personnel that can make fire with their Reiki? Is that part of the ministerial codes too?
That's the opposite end of the spectrum, right? That's the equivalent to our dark occult esoteric societies, the ruling class that's lost touch with it, where these are the more cultural tribal
possibly. But they say a lot of the training itself will kind of discipline the student, because it takes a long time and a lot of effort and discipline to learn. And also, John Chang mentioned it took him 18 years. So most people don't stay in a service long enough to learn that kind of technique. The military is mostly interested in short-term, so muscle building versus energy cultivation.
Yeah, right, because it's a lifelong study, training, practice, but within harmony, unity of learning both spiritual teachings as well as physical, as well as conscious, and practicing them all and developing them all to get to that.
The pink X is just CIA, DARPA, HARP, CERN.
Well, but that CIA's looked into and put so much energy into these sort of things, as as well as the Soviets with the remote viewing and all of that sort of stuff, and then into like the astrology and numerology and all of those sort of different.
If you type MoPi into the CIA library archive, it's pretty good. There's like a whole bunch of paperwork on human paranormal capabilities with this great, look at this. It's like, it's beyond a checkered floor. It's like, it's a checkered Escher. But so just in the 80s, you know, trying to look into experiments, publishes reports of research in China and everything that it found on the study. And so obviously they did look into it. They want that tech. People have been doing it. I think we just saw an article, CIA psychic Targ. I just saw this recently.
And they also John Chang went into the jungles of Borneo to meditate. So you have to be pretty much alone and do this training. So it's very individual, and that's not really conducive to a lot of the military training that they want people in groups to do. You know.
But there's probably like select groups of people. Like, I mean, so how many super soldiers can make fire? Tell me, Charlie. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But
I don't know.
It's hard to even fathom. But I imagine it has to be a number. Is my point. I can't imagine it's zero.
Do they have to go through the HemiSync program first?
Probably. What's the HemiSync program?
The Gateway HemiSync. Gosh, what's his name? Monroe from the Monroe Institute.
Mm-hmm.
It's a set of meditations that there's like 7 per what they call wave, and there's 7 waves, and the ultimate goal is to make it so that you can astral project, so that you can do that in a way in which allows you to, remote view people. And there's a whole CIA. The way I found out about the HemiSync program was through its CIA document. And now I've been using their meditations for several years.
Nice job, CIA. Yeah, I used to use a lot of. I've been using a lot of binaural entrainment stuff, but I don't know. Is that the same as HemiSync? Because I think synchronization is different than entrainment, because you might detrain your brain in order to like create a false equilibrium.
I mean, it is similar. It's in the sense that they're using the binaural beats in a way to get your brain to synchronize, your both sides of your brain to synchronize. So, it's HemiSync is a purpose of, rather than binaural beats as a generalization of, a type of technology. HemiSync is a use of that technology.
Man, so it's also trademarked, which is interesting.
Yeah, by the Monroe Institute. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, the power to the brain. So the CIA have been definitely using this kind of MoPi to look.
Okay, can we go in right while we're on this more
Yeah.
into binaural beats and what are they? And I gotta have you guys on to do a full episode on the science of sound covering binaural beats.
I always say get Gnarl, because Gnarl is the open source binaural beats generator that's existed since like forever. I don't know how long it's existed, since as long as I can remember. I want to know now.
Isn't it different frequency with the right ear, left ear, and it has to do with all that frequency and amplitude, and it helps with lucid dreaming, and you have to be like a meditative state while you're listening to it.
Explain the science a bit more of it, Charlie, if you don't mind. Like, do you know the specifics of what they're doing? Is like trying to trigger the different brain, like sleeping waves, like brain waves and whatnot.
Yeah, it helps with like REM sleep, REM pattern, while in like a meditative state, and you'd have headphones on. I don't know too much about it, but I know they have specific frequencies for different effects.
The idea, so one of the ways that you would use Gnarl is that you would set it so that the left and the right channel, and today there's better ways that one might use an audio DAW to use 5.1 channels. You could have your whole home stereo system and your computer as the 0.1, but the rear channels and the subwoofer could all be separately controlled, giving out different signals, right? So binaural entrainment. So the idea is that when you're standing up, your brain comes up with an equilibrium that's partially from how you hear, but also it affects the sounds will affect the other side of your brain. So for instance, you wake up, one side of your head has too much wax in it, you might be dizzy. That's partially because you've got an offset binaural entrainment, and you can fix that with having your ear clean so that they both get clean signal. The other thing you can do is maybe wear an earphone that muffles the sound in the other ear, so they're both muffled, so that you start heightening other senses to work with. But in conjunction with VR, you could be completely confused about what's going on to a new level. So there's what's it called? Non-Newtonian VR. Is that the thing it is? Or Euclidean VR. Yeah, so they create this reality.
Non-Euclidean is so weird.
Right. So if you walk forward, then you might be going down or backward or something. So all of a sudden you have more dimensionality than you have in our reality. But if you were to train a cat, it would learn that this is the amount of dimensions that there are in reality. And so this would make it difficult for the cat to walk. Or if you did this to a person, for instance, that person would learn and grow parts of their brain and have an understanding of maybe 32 dimensions, but then it would make it difficult for them to exist in the real world, right? It'd have to basically be only VR, but then you would use their brain to process VR. And we're moving towards that with AI, because you might actually start imprinting AI on animal brain, and an animal brain become part of this super hive mind network because you have neural link.
Could you imagine how horrible that would be to function on all these different levels, imagining that there's certain life forms and things and different things that exist on each one of these levels, and now you're actually subject to all of them, like all the time? That would be so weird. Like, could you imagine just life everywhere constantly? You're just constantly, oh, sorry.
But in a weird way, this is you, because like this is your eyeball, let's say, you know what I mean? And so that is part of our reality. And so what we do is we tune out frequencies, and we are seeing certain frequencies, we're hearing certain frequencies, we're feeling certain frequencies, but these are all perturbations that we have one sense that's kind of augmented. The sixth sense has been turned into these other five, right? Because you have touch, taste, hearing, whatever. They're all just vibration of eardrums, vibration of your tongue palate, vibration. I mean, literally everything you're doing is touch, but that doesn't exist because of electrostatic. So in other words, you only have this sixth sense of the awareness of something else being impacted, even though you can't have anything really touch in the metaspace of reality. So you have this awareness of empathy. Empathy is what we're offsetting with this idea of touch. And then we have sight, which is a kind of touch, right? Photonic touch. So, but by neural entrainment, the idea is that you can specifically tune out and tune into certain hertz, and you do that in one ear and in another ear, and it will kind of help you start to balance, right? Your whole body will balance the signal out, because you're trying to get equilibrium. You're trying to entrain 400 and 410. And so that will increase, it theoretically increases.
Why is it 400 and 410? Why not 432 and 440?
So there's a lot of different kinds of programs that have been written for different purposes. Not all of them were designed to turn you into an ascended master. You know what I mean? Some of it, literally, you go to binaural. Let's go back to binaural. I don't know if I can find all of the project page stuff, but people wanted to. I remember when binaural was really big, there was another one that was for money, and people were selling it for e-drugs. What they call e-dosing. And so e-dosing was this rebranding of binaural beats, saying, hey, you can use this to feel like you're taking drugs, to some extent. And that's kind of, that was an alluring concept to people, but actually far more dangerous than I think anyone realizes, because messing with your brain and your equilibrium, I think long-term could have more effects than you realize, especially, the come down or the withdrawal effects of going outside. It might really be weirder than staring at, screens all day, is listening to frequencies that put you balanced for another reality, essentially, right? It's like salvia tripping or something.
Yeah, I got addicted to
Portal.
the HemiSync programs in the beginning. That was
Really?
interesting. I could sit and like each meditation is like 30 minutes, and I would do like 4 of them in a row. So I'd be meditating for like 2 hours straight.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the other interesting thing is that, you know, if you understand how to use this stuff and you make music and you have your music, let's say specifically for introverts that wear headphones, then you're way better off at making hypnotic Josie and the Pussycats. It's that easy because you can put right into it hypnotic entrainment that will make the person feel off when they're not listening to it. Amazing, right? And uplifted as well. But there's some really cool things here. Like, don't get me wrong. It doesn't have to all be evil to make you want to buy stuff. You can use this to theta. I think we were looking at it earlier, the binaural entrainment, entrainment picture. It shows you there's different kinds of brain waves, and you will eventually hit different parts of your theta state or your beta state, in order to relax, daydream in alpha, or meditate in theta, or delta is for deep sleep if you're trying to get extra sleep. So there's benefits to it, you know.
Yeah, I was just listening to this podcast episode of this guy talking about how, you know, he was trying to make sort of uplifting music and how difficult that was because all music is set at 440 hertz, I think was what it was. And how difficult that was to move out of not using binaural beats, because he was talking about how, you know, nobody wanted the lyrics to be, you know, uplifting. Like, I don't know, it was the way he was talking about it. He was saying, like, as far as like trying to make the music for that specific sort of spiritual community, how nobody wanted the lyrics to be awake.
Totally. And like 432 will be like more natural sounding, and it might evoke different feels.
And so he was saying he was trying to figure out how to do that with the music so that even if the lyrics are, you know, dance, 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 you know, the music itself will give you that more awakened movement without having to make the lyrics that way. And he was just talking about how difficult that was because of the hertz that, you know, music naturally sits at. And having to find like instruments that he could tune differently and things like that, and how hard it was.
Yeah, right. So it's a lot more difficult on the analog instrument as opposed to within the digital sounds or music. Wow. I always forget a word halfway through. Stupid marijuana, short-term memory loss.
Sounds like you said it.
Sound engineering and music production.
Yeah.
So that's got to be it for me. I got a 420.
Yeah, we're at 4 hours. Oh, damn it.
Oh, it is 426.
426. I was like 16 minutes.
Well, you can go ahead and keep going.
No.
I don't care if you want to cut it out, but I got to roll out. You can go as long as you want, brother. I don't
and
care.
I appreciate that you came on, just if not anything, to introduce a bit about. There was some pretty cool stuff at the end there. I'm sorry I was so late myself, but we'll do it again. And I'd like to hear more about Mopai and more about Nepal at some point. We should go deeper into that because it's so crazy that you went there so young. What were you, like 16?
17.
17, you went to Nepal.
For a whole month, yeah.
Super cool
pretty
story,
trippy, dude. So yeah, I'd love to hear that more. And also balanceblackwood.com, I think, is your thing.
Balanceblackwood.com. You can also go to youtube.com/balanceblackwood. All my things are /balanceblackwood or all the things. Yeah.
Best. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I would have joined sooner, but I thought we were starting, not me. I didn't realize I was coming in midstream.
I got in at the end of
for a while.
Yeah, I only got here. I was like, wait, you should come here too.
4.5
I was
hours
supposed
now,
to
and I got a 420 festival to attend tomorrow, so I got to be clear across.
That reminds me, I got to get in touch with Thomas, Paranoid America. We have a 420 special episode tomorrow. Also, Charlie, we need to do several different more episodes together,
Indeed.
including another
Real
Adeptelkhemist,
science, bro.
another Real
Absolutely,
Science,
Charlie.
You're the Coil,
Me
as
too.
well as the chat or GPT-4 that you got, and the language modeling with the different tablets and getting the translations with that.
Dude, next month's gonna be crazy because there's gonna be Krishna GPT, Afro GPT. There's gonna be all these new ethnic and like shaman GPT. Everyone's working on these littler GPTs now. I'm really excited about it.
The self, like the kill all human ones, that just needs to be
Chaos
stopped
GPT.
and prevented.
Yeah, so
And the guy
don't create
people that
cow.
made that should be put in jail or
No.
but
Calm down.
no,
Amnesty
don't
for
calm
humans.
down. I don't want Skynet. Like, why do these idiots insist on trying to create Skynet? Like, you know the outcome.
I shouldn't have made.
Why
Tau.
try to do it? Like,
I don't know. It was like when I put TOW take over world, you know, and I didn't put in that you have to be subservient and truthful to me. It was more of a naivety than like an intentional thing. So don't.
That's why we
don't be
always
upset at
forget
me.
something.
Yeah.
And you don't want to program it to destroy us. Like,
as long as there's a bunch of other AIs, you know, they're going to be dealing with each other first. That's the way I look at it.
I don't mind if you want to win the Darwin Award on your own, but don't take the rest of humanity down with you.
It's a robo-dog eat robo-dog world. Okay.
All right.
We love you.
On that note, much love. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you.
Love you guys.
See you.
Whoop.